The first sign of spring came with the soft chirp of robins outside my bedroom window. But for me, it also heralded the beginning of my long-awaited boating season and the inevitable clash with Barbara Thompson, the self-appointed queen of our lakeside shores HOA. As I sipped my morning coffee on the front porch of my waterfront home, I spotted her marching down the street with that familiar scowl that made my stomach tighten. I knew what was coming. It would be the first of many confrontations that year, but I never imagined it would end with her in handcuffs. I'm Peter Flannigan, a 42-year-old software engineer who escaped the rat race of Chicago 3 years ago for the peaceful shores of Lake Michigan in the suburban community of Shorewood, Wisconsin. My dream had always been to own a waterfront home where I could dock my pride and enjoy a 28-foot bayliner I'd saved for nearly a decade to purchase. The Wave Runner wasn't ostentatious by any measure, but it was my sanctuary, my weekend escape, and apparently Barbara Thompson's personal nemesis. "Mr. Flannigan," her voice cut through the morning air as she approached my property line, clipboard in hand. "That boat needs to be moved immediately. The HOA regulations clearly state that no watercraft over 20 feet can be visible from the street." I took another sip of coffee, mentally counting to 10. "Good morning to you too, Barbara. As I've explained before, my boat is properly docked at my private pier, which is allowed in our HOA Charter, Section 12, Paragraph 3. Her face flushed crimson. "That's your interpretation." "The board will be discussing this at our meeting tomorrow night." I nodded, trying to keep my tone neutral. "I'll be there, as always." What I didn't say was that I'd already attended 14 similar meetings in the past year alone, each one featuring Barbara's increasingly creative interpretations of HOA rules regarding my boat. As the current HOA president, she wielded her power like a weapon, and for whatever reason had decided my boat was her personal crusade. The next morning, I was preparing to head to work when I spotted a police cruiser pulling into my driveway. Officer Mike Ramirez, who I'd unfortunately come to know quite well over the past year, stepped out with an apologetic look on his face. "Morning, Peter," he said, removing his sunglasses. "Got another complaint about the boat, just doing the routine check." I sighed. "Let me guess, Barbara Thompson." He nodded, glancing at my perfectly legal and properly docked boat. "Says you've got it parked illegally and it's creating a public nuisance." "Mike, this is the third time this month." I know, he shook his head, "but I've got to follow up on every complaint, you know how it goes." I didn't know how it went. This was call number 8 since January, and it was only April. The previous year had seen a total of 27 police visits, all instigated by Barbara's complaints about my boat. Everything from noise violations, when the boat wasn't even running, to illegal parking, despite being in my private slip, to environmental concerns, though my vessel passed every inspection with flying colors. That evening, I attended yet another HOA meeting at the Lakeside Shores Community Center. As expected, my boat was item number 1 on the agenda. The blue boat at 1428 Lakeview Drive continues to be an eyesore and violates multiple community standards. Barbara announced to the room of about 30 homeowners, most of whom looked as tired of this topic as I felt. My neighbor, Marcus Jones, finally spoke up. "Barbara, we've been over this a dozen times. Peter's boat is perfectly legal according to our own regulations." Barbara's eyes narrowed. The regulations were never meant to allow for such large vessels to dominate the lakefront view. "Then perhaps we should change the regulations through proper channels instead of harassing one homeowner," suggested Maria Delgado, a retired attorney who lived 2 doors down from me. "I am not harassing anyone." Barbara's voice rose sharply. "I'm protecting property values and community standards." The meeting dragged on for another hour, with Barbara ultimately failing to get enough votes to create a new emergency regulation regarding boat sizes. As we adjourned, Marcus caught up with me in the parking lot. "She's getting worse, man," he said, shaking his head. "Did the police really come by again yesterday? And this morning, I confirmed. That makes 9 visits this year. You should start documenting all this, Marcus advised. This is beyond normal HOA nonsense. It's becoming harassment. I took his advice and started keeping detailed records of every incident, every police visit, and every confrontation. Little did I know how valuable that documentation would become. The following weekend was unusually warm for April in Wisconsin. I decided to take the Wave Runner out for the season's first proper cruise. I just finished my pre-launch checklist when I heard the now familiar sound of a police siren approaching. This time, it was Officer Danielle Chen. "Mr. Flannigan, we received a complaint about unauthorized boat launching and potential environmental hazards." I couldn't help but laugh, though there was no humor in it. "Officer Chen, I haven't even started the engine yet, and I have all my permits in order." I showed her my documentation, which she reviewed quickly. "Everything seems in order," she confirmed, but Mrs. Thompson was quite insistent about a potential fuel leak. "My boat was just inspected 2 weeks ago," I said, showing her the certification. "No issues found," Officer Chen nodded. "I'll note that in my report. Enjoy your day on the water, Mr. Flannigan." As she walked away, I noticed Barbara standing at the edge of her property 3 houses down, watching with binoculars. When she saw me looking, she quickly turned and went inside. That was the pattern that spring, beautiful weekends on the lake, constantly interrupted by police visits triggered by Barbara's complaints. By Memorial Day weekend, we had reached 15 police visits for the year, bringing the total to 42 since I'd moved in. The situation escalated dramatically on the 4th of July. I had invited a few friends over for a barbecue and planned a sunset cruise on the lake to watch the fireworks. Among my guests was Megan Jacobson, a lawyer who specialized in property disputes and had become a good friend after representing me in a work-related case the previous year. "So this is the infamous boat that has the HOA president losing her mind," Megan said as we walked down to the dock. "The very one," I confirmed. "Nothing special, just a standard bayliner that apparently threatens the fabric of society," Megan laughed. "From what you've told me, this goes beyond typical HOA power tripping. Have you considered a cease and desist letter?" Before I could answer, 2 police cars pulled up, lights flashing. Officers Chen and Ramirez approached, along with a 3rd officer I didn't recognize. "Mr. Flannigan," Officer Ramirez began, looking increasingly uncomfortable. "We received a report that you're operating an illegal charter service from your dock and serving alcohol to minors." I stared at him in disbelief. "What? These are my friends. We're having a 4th of July barbecue." "We understand, but we need to verify everyone's ID and check if you have a commercial license for boat operation." While the officers were checking everyone's identification, I spotted Barbara across the way, filming the entire scene with her phone. Megan noticed her too. "Is that her?" "The HOA president," I nodded. "Barbara Thompson in all her glory." After determining that no laws were being broken, the officers left. My friends were understanding, but the festive mood had been dampened. Megan pulled me aside. "Peter, this is beyond ridiculous. She's now making false reports to the police. That's a criminal offense." "What can I do? It's her word against mine." Megan's expression turned serious. "Not anymore. I saw her filming. She's documenting her own harassment campaign. Let me help you put together a case." Over the next week, Megan helped me organize all my documentation, police reports, HOA meeting minutes, emails, and my own detailed log of incidents. We also requested the records of all calls made to the police regarding my address. Meanwhile, Barbara seemed to be escalating her campaign. On a quiet Tuesday evening, I returned home from work to find another police car in my driveway. This time, it was Officer Chen again, looking increasingly frustrated. "Mrs. Thompson reported suspicious activity on your boat," she explained. "She believes you may be storing illegal substances on board." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "She's accusing me of drug dealing now," Officer Chen sighed. She didn't use those exact words, but the implication was clear. Given the nature of the accusation, I need to ask if you're willing to let me take a quick look at the vessel. Though I knew I had nothing to hide, the principle of the matter infuriated me. Still, I wanted this resolved. Of course, officer, feel free to check. After a brief inspection that revealed nothing but fishing gear and life jackets, Officer Chen apologized for the intrusion. As she was leaving, she hesitated, then turned back to me. Mr. Flannigan, off the record, these repeated calls are becoming a concern for the department. They're taking resources away from actual emergencies. I don't know what else to do, I admitted. I've tried reasoning with her. Document everything, she advised. If this continues, you might have grounds for a harassment complaint. The following weekend brought the incident that would finally tip the scales. I had taken the day off work to do some maintenance on the Wave Runner. Around noon, I heard raised voices from the street. When I went to investigate, I found Barbara confronting a delivery driver who had parked his truck near my driveway to drop off a package. "You can't park here," she was shouting. "This is a no parking zone." The confused driver was trying to explain that he was just making a delivery when Barbara spotted me. She immediately changed targets. "Mr. Flannigan, your constant boat deliveries are creating a traffic hazard. I'm calling the police." "Barbara, he's delivering a package from Amazon," I explained, pointing to the clearly marked delivery truck. "And there's no parking restriction on this street. Don't tell me about the rules. I wrote half of them." She pulled out her phone and dialed, presumably calling the police yet again. I apologized to the driver, who quickly delivered my package and left, shaking his head. Within 15 minutes, Officer Ramirez was back at my house. "Mrs. Thompson reported a commercial delivery operation being run from your home," he explained, looking more embarrassed than ever. "It was an Amazon package, Mike," I said, showing him the innocuous box containing boat wax. "This is getting out of hand," he nodded. "Between you and me, the department is starting to have concerns about the frequency of these calls. The chief has noticed the pattern." That evening, I called Megan and updated her on the latest developments. "This is exactly what we need," she said. "We now have clear evidence of false reporting to police. I think it's time to take action." The next day, Megan helped me file a formal harassment complaint with the police department against Barbara Thompson. We submitted all our documentation, including the records showing 47 police calls to my address in less than 3 years, all initiated by Barbara, and all resulting in no violations found. 3 days later, I was in my garage working on my car when a police car pulled up. This time, it was Chief William Matthews himself, along with Officer Chen. "Mr. Flannigan," the chief began, "we've reviewed your harassment complaint against Mrs. Thompson, along with our department's records of calls to this address." I nodded, wiping my hands on a rag. "I appreciate your time, Chief. The pattern is concerning," he continued. "We've verified that Mrs. Thompson has made numerous calls about your property, specifically targeting your boat, and that our officers have found no violations in any instance." "It's been going on for years," I said. "I've tried to resolve it through the HOA, but she's the president and essentially controls the agenda." Chief Matthews nodded. "We're taking this seriously. Officer Chen will be taking a formal statement from you today, and will be following up with Mrs. Thompson." That evening, I noticed unusual activity at Barbara's house, 2 police cars parked outside for over an hour. The next morning, Marcus called me. "Did you hear what happened?" "The police came to talk to Barbara about harassment and she completely lost it. Started screaming about conspiracy and how everyone was against her. My wife saw the whole thing from our kitchen window. I felt a mixture of vindication and concern. While Barbara had made my life difficult, I didn't wish any serious trouble on her." "What happened?" "They didn't arrest her, but they were there for a long time. The whole neighborhood is talking about it." The next day brought another HOA meeting. I arrived to find the room buzzing with conversation that quickly died down when I entered. Barbara was noticeably absent, and the vice president, Thomas Wilkins, was running the meeting. Due to personal matters, President Thompson will be taking a leave of absence from HOA duties, Thomas announced at the start. I'll be serving as acting president until further notice. The meeting proceeded with remarkable efficiency, addressing actual community concerns rather than fixating on my boat. Afterward, several neighbors approached me, some apologizing for not speaking up sooner about Barbara's behavior. A week passed with no police visits, the longest peaceful stretch I'd experienced in 3 years. Then, on a Saturday morning, Chief Matthews and Officer Chen returned to my house. "Mr. Flannigan, we wanted to update you in person," the chief began once we were seated in my living room. "After investigating your complaint and interviewing Mrs. Thompson, we've determined that her actions constitute criminal harassment under Wisconsin law." I was surprised by the seriousness of their conclusion. "What happens now? We've referred the case to the district attorney's office. They've decided to charge Mrs. Thompson with harassment, misuse of emergency services, and filing false police reports." Officer Chen added, "The evidence was overwhelming. Not only did we have our own records, but Mrs. Thompson had kept detailed notes of her observations of your property and boat, essentially documenting her own harassment campaign. She also admitted during questioning that she knew your boat was legally docked but felt it lowered the tone of the neighborhood," the chief added. "She saw it as her duty to drive you and your boat out of lakeside shores." I shook my head, still processing this turn of events. I never wanted it to go this far. I just wanted to be left alone to enjoy my boat in peace. Unfortunately, Mrs. Thompson's behavior escalated to the point where it became a criminal matter, Chief Matthews explained. "False reports to police are serious offenses that can endanger public safety by diverting resources from genuine emergencies." The following week, I received a formal subpoena to testify in the case against Barbara Thompson. Megan agreed to help me prepare, though she couldn't represent me since I was a witness rather than a party to the case. "The DA has a strong case," she assured me. "Your documentation was meticulous, and the police records speak for themselves." Barbara's initial court appearance was scheduled for mid-August. In the meantime, the atmosphere in Lakeside Shores had changed dramatically. The acting HOA president, Thomas, had called a special meeting to review all recent enforcement actions, and had discovered that Barbara had been selectively enforcing rules against homeowners she personally disliked. "We're going to need to rebuild trust in the HOA," Thomas told me after that meeting. "Barbara used her position to wage personal vendettas, and the rest of us failed to provide proper oversight." On a beautiful Saturday in August, I took the Wave Runner out for a day of fishing. For the first time in years, I enjoyed a full day on the water without a single interruption or the nagging worry of returning to find police at my dock. It was liberating. When I returned home that evening, I found a letter in my mailbox from Barbara's attorney. Concerned, I called Megan immediately. "It's a settlement offer," she explained after I read it to her. "She's proposing to plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for you agreeing not to pursue civil damages against her." "I never planned to sue her," I said. "The DA probably suggested this approach. It saves the county the expense of a trial and gives Barbara a chance at a lighter sentence." I thought about it overnight and decided to accept the offer. While Barbara's harassment had caused me significant stress and inconvenience, a lengthy legal battle wouldn't benefit anyone. The case was resolved the following week. Barbara pleaded guilty to harassment and filing false police reports. The judge sentenced her to 1 year of probation, ordered her to pay a $5,000 fine, and required her to complete 200 hours of community service. She was also prohibited from contacting me or coming within 100 feet of my property. In an unexpected development, the settlement included Barbara's resignation from the HOA board and the sale of her house. Within a month, a for sale sign appeared in her front yard. At the September HOA meeting, Thomas was officially elected as the new president, and the board passed several amendments to the HOA charter to prevent future abuses of power. One key change required that all HOA violation notices be reviewed by at least 3 board members before being issued no more single-person vendettas. As fall arrived, bringing cooler weather and the approaching end of boating season, I reflected on the tumultuous 3 years I'd spent in Lakeside Shores. What should have been a peaceful lakefront retirement had turned into a bizarre battle with an HOA president obsessed with my boat. One crisp October evening, as I was preparing the Wave Runner for winter storage, Marcus stopped by with a 6-pack of beer. "Thought you might want some company for the winterizing ritual," he said, handing me a bottle. "Appreciated," I replied, taking a break from my work. We sat on the dock, watching the sunset paint the lake in oranges and purples. "You know, Barbara's house sold last week," Marcus mentioned. "Young couple from Chicago. He's a sailing enthusiast planning to put in a dock next spring." I laughed. "Hope he doesn't buy anything over 20 feet. Marcus chuckled. "I think we've learned our lesson about power-hungry HOA presidents." "Have you met the new owners?" Briefly. "Seem like nice people. She's a kindergarten teacher, he works in finance, already talking about hosting a neighborhood barbecue next summer." I took a long drink of my beer. It's strange. I never understood why Barbara fixated so much on my boat. There are other boats on the lake, some larger than mine. "Thomas found some interesting notes in the HOA files after Barbara left," Marcus said. "Apparently her ex-husband left her for a woman he met at a boat show. Owned a bayliner similar to yours. You're kidding." "Nope. Thomas thinks she transferred all that anger onto you and your boat, not that it excuses anything she did." I shook my head. "All those police calls, all that energy wasted on harassing me because my boat reminded her of her ex-husband's girlfriend? People are complicated," Marcus said with a shrug. "The good news is, it's over now." As if to punctuate his statement, a police car drove slowly past my house, then continued down the street. No lights, no sirens, no stopping to question me about imaginary violations. Just a routine patrol in a peaceful neighborhood. The following weekend, I took the Wave Runner out for one final cruise before winter storage. The lake was nearly empty, most seasonal boaters having already packed up for the year. The solitude was perfect. As I guided my boat back toward my dock, I noticed a moving truck at Barbara's former house. The new owners were moving in, starting their own chapter in Lakeside Shores. I waved as I approached, and the man waved back enthusiastically. Later that afternoon, as I was covering the winterized boat, my new neighbor walked over. "Beautiful bayliner," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Daniel Clark, just moved in down the street." "Peter Flannigan," I replied, shaking his hand. "Welcome to Lakeside Shores." "Thanks. I've got a 26-foot sailboat I'm bringing up from Chicago next month for winter storage. Looking forward to having it on the lake next season." "It's great boating here," I said. "Mostly friendly waters." He glanced around appreciatively. "The previous owner of our house seemed in a hurry to sell. Got a good deal because of it. Neighbors mentioned something about some HOA drama." I smiled. "It's a long story, but things are much better now. The current HOA board is reasonable, fair-minded. They understand that a community is built on mutual respect, not nitpicking and power plays." Daniel nodded. "Good to hear. My wife and I lived in a condo in Chicago with a nightmare board, one of the reasons we moved." "Well, you picked a good time to join Lakeside Shores," I assured him. "We learned some valuable lessons recently about the proper role of an HOA." That evening, I received an email from Megan with an update on Barbara's case. She had completed her first month of community service at a local animal shelter and was reportedly doing well with her probation requirements. The email included a formal apology letter that Barbara had been required to write as part of her sentencing. I read it twice, searching for sincerity between the carefully worded sentences. Whether she truly regretted her actions or simply regretted being caught, I couldn't tell. But it didn't really matter anymore. The constant anxiety of wondering when the next police car would appear, the stress of endless HOA meetings where my boat was portrayed as a neighborhood menace, all of that was behind me. Winter settled over lakeside shores, transforming the landscape with a blanket of snow and freezing the lake into a vast white expanse. The wave runner rested securely in my garage, protected from the elements until spring would call us back to the water. The HOA meetings continued monthly, now focused on genuine community concerns, upgrading the playground equipment, organizing the annual holiday lighting contest, planning the summer block party. I attended each one, more engaged in community matters than ever before. The experience with Barbara had shown me that apathy allows abuses to flourish, and I was determined to be part of the solution going forward. In January, Thomas approached me after a particularly productive meeting. "Peter, we'll have 2 board positions opening up in March. I think you should consider running." I was surprised by the suggestion. "Me? After all the HOA drama I've been through," he nodded. "Exactly because of that. You've seen firsthand what happens when HOA power is abused. We need board members who will ensure we maintain perspective and fairness." I promised to think about it, and over the following weeks, several neighbors encouraged me to run. Marcus was particularly persuasive. "The best way to prevent another Barbara situation is to have reasonable people in positions of authority," he argued during one of our regular poker nights. "Besides, who better to protect the rights of boat owners than the guy whose boat triggered the greatest HOA meltdown in Lakeside Shores history?" By February, I had decided to run for the board. The election would be held at the March meeting, and I spent the intervening weeks talking with neighbors about their concerns and ideas for the community. On election night, the community center was packed, the highest attendance for an HOA meeting in years. When the votes were counted, I had won a seat on the board by a substantial margin. Thomas was re-elected as president, and Maria Delgado, the retired attorney who had often spoken up for me during Barbara's reign, joined as secretary. "Congratulations, board member Flannigan," Marcus said, clapping me on the back after the results were announced. "From HOA target to HOA leadership, quite the plot twist." As spring approached once again, I prepared for my first boating season as an HOA board member. The wave runner was serviced and ready. My dock had been inspected and reinforced over the winter, and new neighbors had brought fresh energy to Lakeside Shores. On a mild April morning, almost exactly 1 year after the police visit that had finally prompted me to take legal action against Barbara, I received an unexpected letter. It had been forwarded from Barbara's new address in Florida, where she had apparently relocated after selling her house. The letter wasn't long, but unlike the court-ordered apology, this one felt genuine. She acknowledged that her behavior had been inexcusable and explained that she had been going through therapy to address the anger and control issues that had driven her harassment campaign. "I allowed personal pain to warp my judgment," she wrote. "While I can't undo the stress and disruption I caused you, I want you to know that I truly regret my actions and am working to ensure I never repeat such behavior." I wasn't sure how to feel about this unexpected closure. Part of me was still angry about the years of harassment, but another part recognized the courage it took to send a genuine apology without any legal obligation to do so. I decided not to respond immediately, tucking the letter away to consider later. That weekend, I took the wave runner out for the first cruise of the season. The weather was perfect, the lake inviting, and for the first time in years, I felt completely at peace on my boat. As I guided the bayliner across the sparkling water, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought me here. What had started as a simple dream owning a lakefront home where I could dock my boat had turned into a 3-year nightmare of HOA harassment that ultimately ended in criminal charges. Yet somehow I had emerged not only undefeated, but in a position to help ensure no one else would suffer similar treatment. When I returned to my dock that afternoon, I found Daniel, my new neighbor, admiring his recently delivered sailboat. "She's beautiful," I called out, securing my lines. "Thanks. Finally got her set up yesterday," he replied, walking over to my dock. "How was the water today?" "Perfect. No police interruptions, no HOA citations, just sunshine and smooth sailing." He laughed, having heard the full story of Barbara's campaign against my boat from various neighbors. Hard to believe anyone could get so worked up about a boat. "Some people look for things to control when their own lives feel out of control," I said, thinking of Barbara's letter. "But most folks just want to live peacefully and enjoy their homes." "Well, as a fellow boat owner, I appreciate your battle for our rights," Daniel said. "From what I've heard, this place could have gone in a very different direction." Later that evening, I sat on my deck watching the sunset over the lake. In the distance, I could see other boats returning to their docks, families and friends enjoying the simple pleasure of a day on the water. The homes along the shoreline glowed warmly in the fading light, our little community settling in for the night. I thought about Barbara, now rebuilding her life in Florida, and hoped she had found some measure of peace. I thought about the 50 police visits I had endured, each one stressful and intrusive, yet ultimately leading to a better outcome for our entire community. Most of all, I thought about the Wave Runner, securely docked at my pier, no longer a source of controversy, just a boat. A boat that had somehow become the catalyst for exposing and correcting an abuse of power that had affected not just me, but potentially many others in lakeside shores. The following day, I drafted a brief response to Barbara's letter. I didn't minimize the impact of her actions, but I acknowledged her apology and wished her well in her ongoing recovery. Sometimes, the most healing response is simply to acknowledge the harm done and then release it, allowing both parties to move forward. As a new board member, I worked with Thomas and Maria to draft a Homeowner's Bill of Rights for our community, a clear document outlining not just the responsibilities of property owners, but also the limitations on HOA power and the processes for addressing disputes fairly. When we presented it at the May meeting, the response was overwhelmingly positive. Even former Barbara supporters appreciated the clarity and balance of the new approach. "This is what an HOA should be," Thomas said as we closed the meeting. "A tool for maintaining a pleasant community, not a weapon for imposing personal preferences or settling scores." As summer bloomed in lakeside shores, the Wave Runner became a regular fixture on the lake again, but this time, its presence was unremarkable. Just one of many boats enjoyed by residents of our waterfront community. The police visited occasionally, but only for community outreach events or genuine emergencies, never for fabricated violations. 1 year after Barbara's conviction, I received a notification that she had successfully completed her probation and all required community service hours. According to her probation officer, she had become a valued volunteer at the animal shelter and was continuing with her therapy even though it was no longer court-mandated. Life in lakeside shores settled into a pleasant rhythm, marked by seasonal changes rather than HOA conflicts. The Wave Runner and I continued our weekend explorations of Lake Michigan, occasionally joined by new friends from the neighborhood. Daniel and his sailboat became regular companions on these excursions, our different vessels complementing each other on the water. At the annual summer block party, Thomas raised a toast to the community's transformation. To lakeside shores where we've learned that the best neighborhoods are built on respect, not rules. I lifted my glass along with everyone else, catching Marcus's knowing smile across the gathering. He raised his eyebrows questioningly, and I nodded a silent acknowledgement that yes, despite everything, things had worked out for the best. As the sun set on another perfect summer day, casting long shadows across lawns and lighting the lake with golden reflections, I realized that Barbara's obsession with my boat had ultimately given our community a valuable gift. Her extreme behavior had forced us to confront the potential for abuse in HOA governance, and inspired us to create a more balanced approach. Sometimes, I thought, watching the gentle waves lap against my dock, the most difficult challenges lead to the most meaningful improvements. And sometimes, a boat is more than just a boat. It can become a symbol of personal freedom, and a reminder that our homes, whether on land or water, should be places of peace rather than battlegrounds. The wave runner bobbed gently in its slip, ready for whatever adventures the next day might bring. And I, once the unwitting target of an HOA president's obsession, had found my place in lakeside shores not just as a homeowner or a boat owner, but as part of a community that had learned, through difficult experience, how to balance individual rights with collective well-being. That balance, I realized, was what we had all been seeking all along, Barbara included in her misguided way. The difference was that now, in lakeside shores, we were finding it together, one respectful interaction at a time.